The greatest battle you'll ever face won't happen in the streets, at work, or online. It will happen inside your own mind. And the world? It's already trying to drag you into a war of reactions, distractions, and chaos. The question is, will you be a soldier or a master? They expected you to explode, to break down, to react like everyone else. But what if you didn't? What if your silence became your strength and your calmness, your greatest act of defiance? What if the most life-changing skill isn't making more money or gaining more attention, but mastering the art of staying calm, even when life falls apart? Not because you're numb, but because you've trained your mind to see the storm and still choose peace. One moment, life feels like a smooth current, everything flowing harmoniously, all under control, and then, in the blink of an eye, we're caught in a storm. Stress arrives uninvited, challenges emerge without warning, a plan we were confident in begins to fall apart. This, in truth, is the nature of existence. Life doesn't come with a predictable script. It unfolds in ways that test our patience, our resolve, and our sense of stability. But here's the question that lies at the heart of every personal storm. Is it possible to remain calm, no matter what's happening around us? The answer is yes. Calmness is not a mystical gift reserved for monks, sages, or philosophers isolated on mountaintops. It's not something you're either born with or without. Calmness is a skill, a practice, a way of being that can be developed, nurtured, and strengthened, just like a muscle. Many people believe that inner peace comes when everything around them is peaceful. They wait for the world to be perfect before they allow themselves to relax. But Stoicism, the ancient and enduring school of philosophy, teaches the opposite. It teaches that peace is not found in perfect conditions, but in the mastery of your internal world. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most revered Stoic thinkers and a Roman emperor who faced relentless war, betrayal, and personal loss, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Let those words sink in. You may not be able to control what people say to you. You cannot stop the rain from falling, or prevent traffic jams from happening, or keep others from being rude or unfair. But you can absolutely control how you react. You can choose your inner dialogue. You can pause instead of lash out. You can remain centered in the eye of life's hurricanes. That is the power of a trained mind. And it's a power available to anyone who commits to cultivating it. Not through magic, not through avoidance, but through deliberate mental discipline, through practicing how to pause, reflect, and choose your response rather than react blindly. Think about how most people live their lives, constantly bouncing between emotional highs and lows. Their peace hijacked by every insult, delay, or disappointment. They are reactive by default. They let external chaos dictate their internal state. This isn't because they are weak, it's because they've never been taught there is another way. That's where Stoicism enters. This philosophy, born in ancient Greece and perfected in the heart of the Roman Empire, offers a timeless guide to emotional resilience. It doesn't promise a life without hardship. In fact, it assumes hardship is inevitable. What it offers is a path, a mindset, that enables you to stay composed in the face of it. Imagine this. your world is falling apart. A job is lost, a relationship ends, or an unexpected illness changes everything. The untrained mind panics. It scrambles for control, searches for blame, and succumbs to despair. But the trained mind, the Stoic mind, does something different. It pauses. It breathes. It acknowledges the pain but refuses to become the pain. It looks inward, asking, "What is within my control in this moment?" That single question can transform your life. Because the truth is, calmness is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is not denial. Calmness is courage. Calmness is clarity. Calmness is choosing strength over drama, focus over frenzy, and awareness over impulsivity. This is not easy. It takes practice. It takes patience. It takes the willingness to fail, reflect, and try again. But with time, it becomes part of who you are. You no longer need the world to be quiet to feel peace. You bring the quiet with you. Imagine walking into a room where people are arguing. You don't get swept up in it. You listen, you observe, you speak with intention, while others raise their voices. You raise your awareness. That's not detachment, it's discipline. That's not indifference, it's influence. People begin to notice, not because you are the loudest, but because you are the most grounded. You become the calm presence others gravitate toward. You are no longer ruled by the weather of your circumstances, because your anchor is within. So as we begin this journey into Stoic calmness, understand this. You don't need to escape to a monastery or cut yourself off from the world to find peace. You simply need to learn how to respond to the world differently. You can train your mind, one moment at a time, one thought at a time, one reaction at a time. It starts with a commitment. I will no longer let the world control my emotions. I will no longer trade my peace for momentary outrage. I will practice stillness, not because life is still, but because I choose to be. Let this be the beginning of that practice. Calmness is not something you wait for, it's something you become. 1. Control your mind or let it control you. Have you ever felt like your mind was working against you? One moment you're enjoying your day, and the next, your thoughts spiral into negativity, regret from the past, fear of the future, frustration over things you can't control. Suddenly, your emotions take over. You lash out at someone you care about. You feel overwhelmed. You make decisions you later regret. And when the dust settles, you ask yourself, why did I react that way? This isn't a rare experience. It's something every human being wrestles with. Because as powerful as the human mind is, it's also incredibly reactive, and if left untrained, it will drag you into chaos. Here's the hard truth. If you don't take control of your mind, it will control you. It doesn't matter how intelligent, successful, or self-aware you are, if you haven't learned to master your inner world. Your thoughts will dictate your emotions, and your emotions will dictate your actions. You'll live on a loop, constantly reacting to the outside world, constantly giving your power away. But what if you could break that cycle? What if, instead of reacting out of anger, fear, or insecurity, you could pause, take a breath, and choose how you respond, no matter the situation? That's the essence of mental discipline, and it's the very heart of Stoicism. Epictetus, the great Stoic philosopher, said it best. We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. Think about that for a moment. It's not what happens to you that causes pain, it's the meaning you assign to it. Someone insults you. That's an event. You feel hurt. That's a reaction. But the pain doesn't come from the insult itself. It comes from the belief that what they said is true, or that it matters more than your own sense of worth. This is why two people can face the same event and react in completely different ways. One crumbles, the other stands tall. Why? Because one let the mind react on autopilot, and the other took control. Let's look at an example. You're at a party. Things are going well. You're chatting with friends, laughing, enjoying yourself. Then someone, maybe out of jealousy, or maybe just thoughtlessness, makes a public comment that's clearly a jab at you. Everyone hears it. You freeze. Now, your untrained mind will leap into action. Your heart races. Your pride flares. You feel the heat of embarrassment crawling up your neck. A voice inside screams, "Say something. Defend yourself. Don't let them disrespect you." And if you follow that voice, you might snap back. You might start an argument. You might storm out, only to later wish you'd handled it differently. But what if you did something else? What if, in that moment, you simply paused? You take a deep breath. You allow the comment to land without letting it pierce your peace. You look at the person, not with anger or contempt, but with calm composure, and you ask yourself, do I need to defend myself? Or is their opinion powerless unless I give it meaning? Because that's the truth. Their words only have power if you believe they do. That is the difference between a reactive mind and a disciplined one. A reactive mind tries to win every argument. A disciplined mind doesn't need to. It knows that silence can be louder than any response. That indifference can be more unsettling than retaliation. You don't need to react to every comment. You don't need to take every bait. Self-control is strength. Calmness is mastery. But this isn't about suppressing your emotions. Stoicism is not the art of becoming numb. It's not about pretending you don't feel hurt or anger. It's about recognizing those emotions when they rise, acknowledging them, but choosing not to be ruled by them. Imagine your emotions like waves in the ocean. A reactive person is like a small boat tossed around by every wave. But a stoic is like a lighthouse. The waves crash all around it, but it stands still, firm, and unmoved. That's what it means to train your mind. It means choosing to be an observer of your own thoughts. It means noticing when anger arises and asking yourself, why am I angry? Is this really worth my peace? It means practicing the pause, the space between stimulus and response. That pause is where your power lives. And here's something most people overlook. Mastering your mind isn't reserved for extraordinary people. It's not reserved for monks or philosophers. It's for you. It's for anyone who's tired of living on edge, tired of letting every setback derail their mood, tired of being controlled by things outside their control. Because once you begin training your mind, everything changes. The reckless driver who cuts you off, no longer worth your energy. The rude coworker who tries to provoke you, not worth your peace. The bad day that used to spiral into a bad week no longer has the same power over you. You become centered, grounded, focused. And people notice. They see that you don't react the way others do. They begin to respect the calmness in you. They might even envy it, because deep down, everyone wants to feel that sense of inner control. But make no mistake, it takes work. This isn't something you master in a day. It's a lifelong practice. It starts with small moments, everyday situations. That moment when someone interrupts you and you want to interrupt back, but instead, you breathe and listen. That moment when your child throws a tantrum and you want to yell, but instead, you kneel and speak with patience. That moment when your inner critic tells you you're not good enough, and instead of believing it, you challenge it. Each of those moments is a mental rep. Each time you pause instead of react, you strengthen your mind. You become the master, not the puppet, of your emotions. And here's the most empowering truth. When you control your mind, you control your life. Your relationships improve, because you no longer say things in anger that you can't take back. Your work improves, because you stay focused under pressure. Your health improves, because stress no longer poisons your body. Everything improves, not because the world changed, but because you did. So ask yourself right now, are you in control of your mind, or is your mind in control of you? Every day you have the choice. Every challenge is a test. Will you react, or will you respond? Your mind can be your worst enemy, or your greatest ally. And the difference is in how you train it. 2. Anger doesn't solve problems. Anger. It's one of the most common emotions we experience, and one of the most destructive when left unchecked. It arrives in a flash, uninvited, unfiltered, sometimes over something trivial, sometimes over something deeply personal. A cutting comment, a betrayal, a frustrating delay, an act of disrespect. The moment it strikes, our blood boils, our breath shortens, and we feel the surge take over. In that moment, anger feels powerful. We tell ourselves, I'm standing up for myself. I'm not going to let them get away with that. They deserve to know how I feel. But what happens after? How many times has anger actually solved the problem? Most of the time, if we're honest, it hasn't. Instead of resolving the issue, anger usually escalates it. It turns misunderstandings into arguments. It transforms frustration into full-blown conflict. It burns bridges. It blinds us to logic, to compassion, and to long-term thinking. It creates collateral damage that can't be undone with an apology. And yet, it's so easy to justify in the heat of the moment. We mistake intensity for strength, but as Stoicism teaches us, true strength lies in restraint, not in rage. The Stoic perspective on anger. The ancient Stoic philosophers were no strangers to hardship, betrayal, or injustice. They lived under oppressive empires, faced exile, endured illness, and watched loved ones die. And still, they insisted, anger is not the answer. Epictetus, once a slave turned philosopher, taught that we cannot control what others do, but we can always control how we respond. Seneca warned that, Anger is a brief madness, and if we don't learn to master it, we become its slave. The Stoics didn't say, "Don't feel anger." That's unrealistic. We're human. Emotions will rise. What they taught is this: pause, breathe, observe, choose. When someone wrongs you, when the driver cuts you off, the boss criticizes unfairly, or a partner says something that cuts deep, you have a choice. You can unleash the fury, or you can ask yourself, is this worth losing my peace over? Will this reaction fix the problem, or just inflame it? Am I responding from wisdom, or from ego? Because once you lose your calm, you've lost control, and the person or situation that triggered you now holds the reins of your life. The illusion of control. Here's what anger often promises: control. When we get angry, we feel like we're reclaiming power. We feel like we're doing something. We speak louder, move faster, get more aggressive, but underneath that fury is insecurity. We're not in control, we're out of control. And worse, we're letting someone else dictate our behavior. Imagine this. You're driving peacefully, heading to work, music playing, mind clear. Then, someone swerves into your lane. No signal, no apology, just reckless, selfish driving. Instantly, your heart pounds. You slam the brakes, you clench the wheel, and you feel it, anger, sharp and raw. What do? You could honk, yell, speed up to confront them. But will it help? Will they pull over and say sorry? Will the traffic suddenly improve? Will your peace return? No. In fact, your rage will only tighten its grip. And for the rest of your drive, your mind will replay that moment on loop, poisoning what could have been a calm morning. But imagine you took a breath instead. You say to yourself, "That was dangerous, but I'm still okay." You loosen your grip, you continue your drive, unshaken. That moment doesn't become the defining experience of your day. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, and it's a superpower most people never realize they have. Anger is a signal, not a solution. Now, that doesn't mean we ignore injustice. Stoicism isn't about being passive or letting others walk all over us. Stoicism is about response over reaction. It's about channeling energy wisely, not explosively. Anger, in its essence, is a signal. It tells us that something feels wrong, that a boundary has been crossed, a value violated, a wound reopened, and that signal is valuable. But it's not a solution. Think of it like this. Pain in your body alerts you that something needs attention. But you don't solve the issue by screaming. You seek the cause. You address the root. Anger works the same way. When someone says something cruel, you might feel disrespected. Instead of lashing out, ask, "Why does this trigger me? Is it touching on an insecurity? Is it because I expected better from them? Or do I just feel unseen?" Understanding the root allows you to respond from clarity, not chaos. Silence as strength. In many cultures, silence is misinterpreted as weakness. If you don't retaliate, if you don't speak up immediately, people may say you're being passive, that you're letting others win. But here's what the Stoics understood. Silence can be more powerful than any shout. Silence shows you're not reactive, that you are choosing your moment, that you are unshaken by cheap provocations. Imagine someone trying to insult you, provoke you, drag you into a shouting match, and you remain calm. You simply look at them, not with hatred, not with fear, but with presence. They expected fire, and you gave them stillness. That unsettles people far more than rage. Because the person who can remain calm in the face of disrespect is the person who owns the room. Not because they dominate, but because they radiate inner mastery. Training the response. Let's be honest, this isn't easy. When you've been wronged, when emotions surge, pausing feels unnatural. It feels like weakness, but that's the lie anger tells you. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you strengthen your mental muscle, and like any muscle, it gets stronger with use. Start with the small things. The slow waiter at the restaurant, the rude comment online, the person who interrupts you. These are your practice grounds. In those moments, breathe. Don't react immediately. Observe your urge, watch it rise, and let it fall. You'll begin to see that most things aren't worth your energy. You'll begin to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Redefining strength. In our modern world, strength is often mistaken for aggression. The loudest voice, the sharpest tongue, the person who wins the argument. But true strength? It's quieter. It's in the person who walks away from a fight they could win, because they know it's not worth it. It's in the person who speaks with calm clarity in a room full of shouting. It's in the person who holds their ground, not with fists, but with presence. That's the strength Stoicism cultivates. And that's the strength that changes lives. So the next time anger rises, pause. Ask yourself, will this bring peace or poison? Is this worth losing control over? What would a stronger version of me do right now? You'll begin to realize, anger is not the mark of power. Mastery over anger is. 3. Calmness is not weakness, it's strength. In a world that often confuses noise with influence, aggression with power, and reaction with strength, calmness is an underrated and misunderstood force. Too often, we assume that the loudest voice in the room holds the most authority. We're taught, either directly or subtly, that if we're not assertive, loud, or dominant, we will be dismissed or overlooked. But what if we've been taught wrong? What if real strength isn't loud at all? What if it's quiet, steady, unshaken? What if calmness is not the absence of emotion, but the presence of absolute self-control? Society's illusion of power. From boardrooms to political debates, from social media feuds to family arguments, we often see the same pattern repeat: the person who talks the most, who interrupts the loudest, who postures aggressively, is perceived to be winning. But that's not real power. That's performative power, a show designed to appear dominant, when in truth, it often masks insecurity. True power, the kind that commands respect without demanding it, doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to clench fists, slam doors, or dominate conversations. True power can sit in silence and remain unshaken, not because it is passive, but because it is grounded. The power of self-mastery. Imagine someone insults you in public. Not a light-hearted joke, but a targeted, sharp remark designed to provoke. All eyes turn to you. The room goes silent. Everyone's waiting for the explosion, the comeback, the retaliation. But instead, you stay still. You breathe. You look the person in the eye, not with anger, but with calm recognition. You don't respond with venom. Maybe you respond with a quiet, pointed comment. Maybe you don't respond at all. That moment, when you choose composure over conflict, is where real strength is revealed. Because you refused to give your power away. You chose to own your reaction. Calmness disarms. Silence reflects strength. Here's something few understand. When you stay calm in the face of aggression, you create discomfort, not for yourself, but for the aggressor. People expect resistance. They expect their outburst to trigger yours. That's how the emotional spiral begins. One reaction feeding another, building into chaos. But when you don't react the way they anticipate, their tactic fails. Their words fall flat. They're forced to face the uncomfortable truth of their own behavior, without the distraction of your emotional outburst to justify it. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting back their weakness. And that is disarming. Gandhi, the living embodiment of calm strength. If there was ever a living example of how calmness can be the strongest force in the world, it was Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi led one of the most powerful resistance movements in history, not with armies, not with weapons, but with something far more powerful: conviction, calmness, and the courage to endure. Under British colonial rule, India was subjected to cruelty, injustice, and control. Gandhi, a thin man with no political title or military power, chose a path that most would consider weak: nonviolence. He called it ahimsa, the practice of causing no harm, and satyagraha, the insistence on truth. His calmness wasn't passive, it was strategic. It was the highest form of discipline. When his people were beaten, they did not retaliate. When laws were unjust, they protested peacefully. When British soldiers struck, Gandhi's followers stood tall, silent, and dignified, and that silence shook the British Empire more than any weapon could. One of the most remarkable events was the Salt March of 1930. Gandhi led thousands on a 240-mile walk to the Arabian Sea to make salt, defying the British monopoly on salt production. It was a peaceful act of protest, but it ignited a movement that awakened millions and became a turning point in India's struggle for independence. The British had the guns, the soldiers, the might, but Gandhi had something greater: control over himself, and through that, influence over millions. Calmness didn't make him weak, it made him unforgettable. Why calmness is so rare and so respected. Remaining calm is not easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things you can do in a world that constantly tests your patience. Anyone can scream, anyone can rage, anyone can react. But to stand still when everything urges you to fight, to hold your tongue when your ego demands revenge, that takes immense inner strength. Calm people are rare because they've done the inner work. They've learned to observe their emotions without becoming them. They've trained their minds to pause, to reflect, to respond instead of react. And that's why we remember them. We remember the teacher who never raised her voice, yet commanded a room with grace. We remember the friend who listened quietly instead of dominating every conversation. We remember the colleague who remained cool under pressure, solving problems while others panicked. These are not weak people. These are masters of their inner world. Calmness in action, a workplace example. Let's bring it into a common setting. You're in a team meeting. You present an idea you've worked hard on. Suddenly, a coworker harshly criticizes your proposal. Their tone is dismissive, maybe even condescending. Your mind reacts instantly. You feel the heat rise. Your heart pounds. The urge to snap back is strong. But then you remember your training. You pause. You take a breath. And when you speak, your tone is measured, your words thoughtful. You defend your point without attacking theirs. You stay grounded. What happens next? The tension drops. Your authority rises. Others see your composure and respect it. You didn't just win the moment. You modeled emotional maturity. And that is a lasting victory. The inner fortress. Think of calmness as a fortress inside you. No one can enter unless you open the gates. People may knock, they may shout, they may throw insults like stones. But if your fortress is strong, their noise never shakes the foundation. That's what the Stoics believed. They trained themselves to be impervious to insult, to remain unshaken by public opinion, and to find peace in their own character. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king of Rome, said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, the world can be chaotic, but your mind doesn't have to be. Misunderstood stillness. People might misunderstand your calmness. They might say you're cold, detached, uninterested. But in time, they'll see the truth. They'll see that your stillness is not emptiness, it's presence. They'll realize that you're not suppressing your emotions, you're mastering them. And most importantly, you will feel it. You will feel the difference between living on edge and living in alignment. You'll feel how empowering it is to no longer be a puppet pulled by emotional strings. You'll notice how much clarity you gain when anger, ego, and pride no longer cloud your decisions. That's the gift of calmness, and it's one that transforms everything. The quietest power is the deepest. In the end, the calmest person in the room is usually the most powerful, not because they dominate others, but because they have dominion over themselves. Calmness allows you to listen deeply, to think clearly, to act with intention, to inspire others without saying a word. It's not about winning every argument. It's about winning yourself back. Because the greatest victory isn't in conquering others, it's in mastering your own mind. 4. Life is unfair, but that doesn't matter. Let's face a difficult truth. Life is not fair. It never promised to be. You can work harder than everyone around you and still be overlooked. You can treat others with kindness, only to be betrayed. You can do everything right and still get blindsided by circumstances that seem impossibly cruel. And when that happens, when life feels unjust, it's easy to fall into resentment. We ask, why me? We blame others. We blame fate. And we wait for the world to change, for the situation to correct itself, for the universe to make it right. But here's the harsh, liberating truth. The world may never become fair, but your peace does not depend on that. The Stoic response to injustice. Stoicism doesn't sugarcoat reality. It doesn't tell you everything will work out in your favor. It doesn't say that karma will balance the scales, or that suffering always leads to reward. What it does say is this: you can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. That response is where your freedom lies. That response is where your power lives. You may not get to choose the cards you're dealt, but you always choose how to play them. And sometimes, how you play a terrible hand reveals more about your strength than winning with a good one ever could. The weight of injustice. Let's not minimize how heavy injustice feels. You see someone get a promotion they didn't earn. You watch others succeed through shortcuts while you struggle through honesty and hard work. You endure heartbreak, failure, and disappointment, while others seem to float through life untouched. And yes, it stings. You wonder, what's the point of effort if the system is rigged? But that question points in the wrong direction. The point of effort is not to guarantee success. The point is to build character, to develop endurance, to become the kind of person who rises, not because the world lifts them, but because they refuse to stay down. Unfairness is the soil where inner strength is grown. Nick Vujicic, The Power of Perspective. To fully understand this, look at the story of Nick Vujicic. Born without arms or legs due to a rare condition called tetra amelia syndrome, Nick entered a world that wasn't ready for him. From the moment of birth, life handed him a reality that many would consider a death sentence for joy, success, or independence. Imagine growing up in a body that defies every expectation of normalcy. Imagine being told, both subtly and directly, that you'll never live a full life. That you'll always be dependent. That dreams are not for people like you. Nick believed those voices for a time. As a child, he experienced deep depression. He asked why he had to be born this way. He even contemplated ending his life. But something shifted. Instead of cursing his condition, he began to challenge his perspective. He couldn't change his body, but he could change his mind. He began to focus on what he could do rather than what he couldn't. He learned to brush his teeth, use a computer, swim, and even play soccer, using only his torso. He found ways to live independently, to navigate the world on his terms. And more than that, he turned his adversity into a mission. Nick became one of the most sought-after motivational speakers in the world. His words have inspired millions. His presence brings hope where despair once reigned, not because he overcame a disability, but because he transcended limitation with mindset. purpose, and unshakable determination. His life is a living embodiment of the Stoic principle. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Choosing strength over victimhood. Here's what most people miss. Being treated unfairly is not the same as being powerless. You are not a victim of your circumstances unless you allow yourself to be. You are not defined by misfortune unless you let it dictate your identity. This doesn't mean denying pain. It doesn't mean ignoring the injustice or pretending it doesn't hurt. What it means is that you refuse to let unfairness steal your will to rise. You refuse to allow bitterness to rot your character. You refuse to wait for the world to be fair before you move forward. Because if you wait for fairness, you may wait forever. But if you train your mind to act, to grow, to persist no matter what, then nothing can truly stop you. The Stoic strategy for facing injustice. So, how does one deal with the pain of unfairness? How do you face injustice without drowning in rage or despair? The Stoics offer a 3-step strategy. 1. Accept what is. Don't deny reality. Don't sugarcoat it. See the injustice clearly. Acknowledge that it hurts, but do not become attached to it. Do not let it define your story. 2. Focus on what you can control. Can you control people's opinions? No. Can you control systems of favoritism? Not always, but you can control your reaction. You can choose to keep improving, to keep moving, to keep growing. 3. Transform pain into purpose. Like Nick, use your suffering as fuel. Let it carve out deeper empathy. Let it build patience, humility, and wisdom. Let it make you into someone stronger than you would have become in an easy life. When you approach unfairness this way, it no longer becomes a barrier, it becomes a teacher. Your story is still yours. You may not have chosen your starting point. Maybe you were born into poverty. Maybe you faced discrimination. Maybe trauma knocked on your door before you even knew how to speak. But your response, your decisions, your values, your courage, that's where your story is written. And that part is entirely yours. Every time you rise in the face of injustice, you're proving that your spirit is stronger than circumstance. You're showing the world, and more importantly, yourself, that you are the author of your life, not just a character in someone else's plot. Strength built in the fire. The strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. The most resilient minds are shaped by the toughest trials. Life may be unfair, but you don't have to be broken by it. You don't have to shrink. You don't have to surrender your integrity, your peace, or your potential. You can stay calm. You can stand tall. You can become the kind of person who not only survives unfairness, but who rises because of it. Rise anyway. The world isn't fair. Some people will cheat and win. Some people will hurt others and face no consequences. Some efforts will go unnoticed. Some dreams will take longer than they should. But that doesn't mean your journey is meaningless. Because every time you choose peace over resentment, action over complaint, self-mastery over self-pity, you are winning a different kind of battle. A more important one. You're becoming someone unshakable. And in a world of chaos and injustice, That is the rarest kind of power. 5. Losing control is a choice. Have you ever told yourself, "I just couldn't help it," after yelling, overreacting, or saying something you later regretted? It's a common excuse. We hear it everywhere. I lost control because they pushed me too far. I exploded because I was under pressure. I snapped because I was tired. But let's pause for a moment. Is it really them? The pressure? The stress? The exhaustion? Or is it that we allowed those external forces to dictate our internal response? Because here's a truth that may be uncomfortable, but it's also empowering. Losing control is a choice. And just as you can choose to lose it, you can choose to keep it. The myth of emotional hijack. We live in a world that normalizes emotional outbursts. Movies romanticize fiery arguments. Social media rewards dramatic reactions. Society often treats impulsive behavior like it's inevitable, like we're just victims of our emotions. But you are not a puppet to your feelings. Yes, you may feel anger, sadness, fear, frustration. That's natural. Emotions are not the enemy. They are part of the human experience. But what you do next, that's where your power lies. Your reaction is not automatic. It is chosen, even if that choice happens in a split second. And that choice can be trained. No one can make you lose control without permission. Epictetus, the great Stoic philosopher, once said, "Remember, it is not enough to be hit or insulted to be harmed. You must believe that you are being harmed." Think about that. Someone could say something offensive, but unless you believe their words have power, unless you allow those words to sink in, they cannot truly hurt you. You could be cut off in traffic, criticized unfairly, or betrayed by a friend, but until you decide to internalize that injustice and react emotionally, you are still in control. This doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you are the gatekeeper of your response. The story of the old man on the train. Let's bring this idea to life with a simple, powerful story. One day, during the evening rush hour, a packed commuter train is crawling through the city. It's loud, stuffy, and everyone is irritable. In the crowded chaos, a young man accidentally steps on the foot of an elderly gentleman. The young man turns quickly, embarrassed. "I'm so sorry," he says sincerely. The old man looks up from his book, nods gently, and replies, "It's all right." He then returns to reading, showing no sign of anger or offense. Another passenger nearby, having witnessed the entire scene, leans over curiously. "Sir, why didn't you get upset?" they ask. "If someone stepped on my foot, I'd yell at them." The old man smiles and says calmly, "Getting angry won't ease the pain in my foot. It would only burden my mind." That one line reveals an entire philosophy of life. Pain is inevitable, but suffering, especially emotional suffering, is often optional. It is created not by the event itself, but by how we choose to react. The old man chose clarity over chaos. He chose peace over pride. And in doing so, he preserved something far more valuable than a moment of satisfaction, his inner freedom. Emotions aren't commands, they're cues. When you feel a surge of emotion, like anger, envy, anxiety, it's not an instruction. It's a signal. That signal says, something here feels off. Something violated a value or expectation. Something hurt. But you don't have to obey that signal. You can investigate it. Why did this trigger me? Why did I feel the need to prove myself in this situation? Why does their opinion matter so much? When you take this pause, even for a breath, you reclaim your authority. You stop being a slave to your impulses and become the master of your response. The true cost of losing control. Every time you lose control, something is lost. You lose clarity. Emotions cloud your judgment. You say things you don't mean. You make poor decisions. You lose influence. People respect those who can stay composed, especially in tense situations. The louder you get, the more credibility you lose. You lose energy. Emotional outbursts drain your mind and body. You carry their residue long after the moment passes. And perhaps most importantly, you lose your peace, the most priceless possession of all. So ask yourself, is this reaction worth the cost? Training the choice. Like any discipline, choosing control over chaos is a practice. It starts small. Someone cuts in front of you in line. You pause, breathe, and let it go. Your partner forgets something important. You feel the sting, but you speak with clarity instead of rage. A colleague takes credit for your idea. You assert your truth calmly, not out of vengeance but out of self-respect. Each time you do this, you strengthen the habit of awareness. You train your mind to pause before it pounces. And slowly, moment by moment, you become the kind of person who is unshakable, not because life is easy, but because your response is disciplined. Strength in stillness. Let's be clear, staying calm doesn't mean staying silent in the face of wrong. It doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or tolerating abuse. Stoicism is not passivity, it's precision. You don't react just to feel powerful, you respond when it's strategic, when it's wise, when it aligns with your values. That means walking away from some battles. It means addressing others, but with calm conviction, not fury. It means, in a world where everyone is yelling, you speak with stillness and are heard even louder. The role model effect. Have you ever met someone who never loses their cool? Someone who stays calm even in the face of stress, disrespect, or failure? They don't avoid conflict. They don't run from difficulty. But their responses are measured, thoughtful, and intentional. You remember them, don't you? Why? Because calmness stands out. In a world of impulsive reactions, it's rare, and because it's rare, it commands attention, it earns respect. You have the power to become that person. At the end of the day, it comes down to identity. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be someone who is easily triggered, tossed around by every frustration, regretful after every reaction? Or do you want to be someone who moves through the world with calm strength, whose peace is not dictated by people or circumstances, That choice is yours, not once, but every day, in every situation. Because every emotion gives you an invitation. Will you lose control, or choose it? The takeaway. Life will test you. People will provoke you. Injustice will happen. Your expectations will be broken. But none of these things can take your control unless you hand it over. So next time your emotions rise, remember this. You are not your anger. You are not your impulse. You are not your reaction. You are the one who watches them and decides what comes next. And that, my friend, is the ultimate freedom. 6. Don't get stuck in the past or the future. Have you ever found yourself lying in bed, eyes open in the dark, your mind racing with thoughts about a conversation you had weeks ago, or one you fear might happen tomorrow? Have you ever replayed a past mistake so many times that it felt fresh again? Or worried so much about the future that it paralyzed you from doing anything in the present? If so, you're not alone. It's the most human thing in the world, to drift, to obsess over what was or fear what might be. But while it may be common, it's also one of the most dangerous traps of the mind. Because in that drift, something quietly slips away. The present, the only thing that truly belongs to you. The tyranny of time. We're always being pulled in two directions. Backward into the past, where regret lives. Forward into the future, where anxiety waits. Both directions rob us of presence. The past is a memory. The future is an imagination, but the now is reality. And the more time we spend outside of it, the more we lose the opportunity to fully live. As the Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Man lives only in the present, in this fleeting instant. All the rest of his life is either past and gone or not yet revealed." Let that sink in. Everything behind you no longer exists. Everything ahead of you is a fantasy, unformed, uncertain. The only thing real is this moment. And this moment, right now, is where all your power resides. The weight of regret. Let's start with the past. It's easy to get stuck there. A decision you wish you made differently. Words you wish you never said. Opportunities you missed. People you lost. The mind clings to these moments like scars we won't let heal. We tell ourselves that if we analyze it just one more time, we'll find closure, but often, that analysis becomes self-inflicted punishment. And the truth is, no amount of thinking can rewrite what's already been written. The past is unchangeable. But what is in your control is the story you tell yourself about it. You can choose to be the victim of what happened, or the author of what happens next. The fear of what's to come. Then there's the future. Endless scenarios play in our heads. What if I fail? What if they leave? What if I lose everything? Anxiety builds not because we know what's coming, but because we don't. Our minds hate uncertainty, so they fill in the blanks with fear. We imagine worst-case outcomes as if they're already happening. We brace for impact that might never come. And in doing so, we suffer twice, once in imagination, and again if the moment actually arrives. The Stoics had a term for this, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They didn't suggest we ignore the possibility of hardship. They encouraged us to face it calmly in advance, not to dwell, but to prepare the mind so it wouldn't be caught off guard. But even then, the point was to return to the present, to not get stuck in what hasn't happened. The gift of presence. So how do we stay grounded? How do we train our minds to return to the present when the past pulls us back and the future drags us forward? It starts with mindfulness, a practice not exclusive to Eastern traditions, but deeply rooted in Stoic philosophy as well. Mindfulness doesn't require candles or mantras. It simply asks for your attention. It asks that you notice what is happening around you, and inside you, right now. Your breath. Your thoughts. The sounds in the room. The sensation of your feet on the ground. When your mind begins to wander, mindfulness gently brings it back, not by force, but by invitation. This is how presence is reclaimed, one breath at a time. The Novak Djokovic example. To see this principle in action, consider the story of tennis legend Novak Djokovic. In his early career, Djokovic was wildly talented but inconsistent. He'd lose focus mid-match. He'd get rattled by mistakes, overthink his failures, or obsess over future rounds. His emotions would derail his performance. But something changed. Djokovic began to train not just his body, but his mind. He studied mindfulness. He learned to focus, not on the scoreboard, not on the audience, not on his reputation, but on each individual point. One point at a time. He no longer allowed past losses or future worries to pull him away from the only place he could win, the present. And the result? He didn't just become more focused. He became nearly unbeatable, because while others played against fear or tried to erase past mistakes mid-match, Djokovic played fully in the now. And the now is where champions are made. Practical steps to reclaim the present. You don't need to be a world-class athlete to master this skill. You just need to practice. Here are a few powerful steps. 1. Pause and breathe. When you feel overwhelmed by regret or anxiety, stop, take a deep breath, let it ground you. Remind yourself, I am here. This is real. 2. Name the thought. Say it mentally. This is a past-focused thought. Or, this is a fear about the future. By naming it, you create distance from it. You become the observer, not the prisoner. 3. Engage your senses. Look around. What do you see, hear, smell, feel, taste? Grounding your senses pulls you back into the present moment like a lifeline. 4. Focus on what you can do now. Can you take a small action today? Can you say something kind? Make a plan. Drink some water. Write something down? Action anchors you in reality. 5. Practice gratitude. You cannot be fully present and fully anxious at the same time. Gratitude focuses your attention on what is rather than what isn't. Peace lives in the present. You will never find peace in the past. You cannot feel joy in a future that hasn't arrived. All peace, all clarity, all freedom live in the present moment. That's why the Stoics guarded it so fiercely. They knew that while they couldn't control fate, they could control attention, and attention is the gateway to inner power. You may not have control over yesterday's mistakes. You don't have a guarantee about tomorrow's outcomes. But you do have this breath, this choice, this response. And that's enough. Life doesn't happen in the past or the future. It happens now. But many of us miss it, not because we're lazy, but because we're elsewhere. We're haunted by old conversations or paralyzed by imagined tomorrows. We go through the motions while our minds wander away. Don't miss your life waiting for a better one to begin. The truth is, everything you need to build peace, purpose, and power is already available, in this very moment. So the next time your mind drifts back or races ahead, pause. Say to yourself, I will not waste the present. This moment is mine. Here is where I choose peace. That's all life is, a series of present moments. And how you live each one is how you live your life. 7. Life is chaotic, but calmness lies within you. Chaos is not the exception in life, it is the rule. You can wake up with a plan, an agenda, and a clear sense of direction, and within moments, it all falls apart. An unexpected message, a sudden argument, a disappointing piece of news. Just like that, the peace you woke up with vanishes. And yet, there's a deeper truth the Stoics understood long ago. You may not control what's happening around you, but you always control what's happening within you. This truth is not just philosophy. It is liberation, because once you understand that your inner calm is not dependent on outer circumstances, you stop chasing control of the uncontrollable, and begin mastering the only thing you truly own, your response. Blank. Underscore, blank. The world will always be loud. Everywhere you look, life is noisy. The news is urgent. Social media is chaotic. People rush, yell, panic, and provoke. Emotions are high. Patience is low. And when you enter that current unprepared, it's easy to get swept away. You absorb the stress of others. You mirror their anger. You take their anxiety as your own. But what if you didn't? What if, instead of reacting to the noise, you became the stillness in the room? What if you stopped chasing peace in the outside world and started building it inside? Because here's the secret. Peace isn't something you find, it's something you create. Calmness is not avoidance, it's strategy. Many people confuse calmness with weakness. They think staying quiet during conflict is avoidance. They assume a calm person has no fire, no strength. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Stoic calmness is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of control. It is the ability to remain anchored in truth when others are drifting in emotion. It's not about staying silent because you have nothing to say. It's about staying deliberate, choosing when and how to speak because you know that your energy is sacred. Imagine two people in a heated debate. One is raising their voice, flailing their arms, desperate to prove a point. The other is listening quietly, watching, breathing, and choosing each word with precision. Who appears more in control? Who carries more weight? It's not always the loudest person who holds power, it's often the calmest. The battlefield of emotion. Every interaction is a potential battlefield. You'll meet people who try to pull you into their drama, who bait you with sarcasm, who throw passive-aggressive comments your way, who explode in rage because they are unable to handle their own. And in those moments, you face a choice. Do I enter the storm, or stay rooted in calm? Most people enter. They match energy with energy, unaware that they're surrendering control to someone else's emotional state. They get dragged into arguments, say things they don't mean, and walk away feeling drained, not victorious. But the Stoic chooses a different path. The Stoic doesn't match the chaos, they neutralize it. Not with passivity, but with poise. They understand that when emotions are high, logic is low, and reacting impulsively is never a position of power. They stay calm not because they're weak, but because they've trained themselves to be strong where it matters most, inside. A real-world example. The argument that never happened. Let's bring this idea to life. You're having a difficult day. Deadlines, fatigue, disappointments. You come home looking for rest, but instead, you're met with irritation from a loved one, a rude comment, a sarcastic jab. Your heart rate rises, your pride flares. You want to react. You want to remind them that you've had a hard day too. You want to win this moment. But you pause. You breathe. You recognize that their words are not about you, they're about them. Their stress, their unspoken frustration, their own chaos leaking out. And instead of reacting, you stay calm. Maybe you walk away, maybe you answer with kindness. Maybe you simply say, "Let's talk later when we're both calm." And just like that, you've avoided a pointless argument. You've preserved the energy you would have wasted. You've stopped the cycle. That's not weakness. That's self-leadership. Stillness in the eye of the storm. Think of calmness like the eye of a hurricane. Around you, winds are raging, people are yelling, life is spinning. But inside, the eye is stillness, silence, control. That's what Stoicism trains you to build, an inner space untouched by external madness. And the more you protect that space, the more power you carry into every situation. Because in a world that constantly tries to steal your attention, provoke your anger, or hijack your mood, calmness is rebellion. It says, "You don't control me, my peace is not up for grabs. I respond on my terms." Why calmness is so rare? Let's be honest, calmness is hard. Anyone can scream, anyone can slam a door, anyone can fire off a tweet in anger. But to pause when you're provoked? To choose silence over ego? To breathe instead of lash out? That takes training, that takes strength. And because it's rare, it's powerful. In meetings, people remember the one who stayed composed. In relationships, people admire the one who de-escalates instead of igniting. In leadership, people follow the one who remains calm when everyone else panics. Why? Because that calmness radiates something others crave: safety, stability, and strength. practicing inner calm in daily life. You don't need a meditation retreat or a philosophy degree to begin practicing inner calm. It starts small. When someone interrupts you, don't raise your voice, raise your awareness. When a stranger is rude, don't mirror their energy, protect yours. When plans fall apart, don't spiral. Anchor yourself in what's still within your control. Each moment is a representative in the gym of the mind. Each time you stay calm when it's easier to explode, you grow stronger. And over time, calmness becomes your default, not your exception. Calmness is influence. Here's the final truth. Calmness doesn't just protect you, it influences others. When you stay centered, people adjust around you. They mirror your energy. They pause before escalating. They respect your presence, even if they don't understand it. And sometimes, your calmness is what helps them find their own. You become the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the tone, rather than reacting to it. That is real power, quiet, humble, and undeniable. Life won't stop being chaotic. People won't stop being difficult. Situations won't stop being unpredictable. But none of that can touch your inner world, unless you open the door and let it in. So the next time you feel pulled into negativity, remember this. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to take on the energy of the room. You don't have to be reactive to be respected. Your calmness is not escape, it's elevation. It's not silence, it's strategy. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. And when the world is chaos, the person who stays calm becomes the rarest and most powerful presence in the room. Be that person. 8. Don't let circumstances define you. There are many things in life we don't get to choose. We don't choose where we're born. We don't choose our family. We don't choose the struggles we face as children. We don't choose the economy, the weather, or the first chapter of our story. And yet, we often make a critical mistake. We believe that because we didn't choose our circumstances, we are bound by them. We let them define us, limit us, shape our identity. But Stoicism offers a revolutionary truth, one that has changed lives for over 2,000 years. You are not your circumstances. You are your response to them. This simple idea can rewrite your future. The illusion of powerlessness. It's easy to look at a difficult life situation and think, this is just the way it is. We say things like, I can't succeed, I come from nothing. I'll always struggle. People like me don't get opportunities. This is just my fate. But these aren't truths, they're stories we tell ourselves. Stories we learned from others, from hardship, from society, and the longer we repeat them, the more they become chains that bind us to our current reality. But what if we questioned that story? What if we asked, what if I'm not my circumstances at all? Because the moment you separate your identity from your environment, you unlock the power to grow beyond it. The boy who refused to be defined. Let's imagine a young boy born into poverty. He grows up in a rough neighborhood, surrounded by broken homes, constant struggle, and voices that say he'll never amount to anything. At school, he's overlooked. At home, he's burdened with responsibilities far beyond his years. The world looks at him and sees a statistic, a boy with no future, a background that guarantees failure. And for a while, he believes it. Until one day, he realizes something that changes everything. I am not my surroundings. I am not my past. I am not the limits others place on me. I am who I choose to become. This shift is invisible to others, but revolutionary to him. He begins to study harder. He stays up late reading books instead of following the crowd. He takes small steps, saving money, asking questions, seeking mentors, staying focused when everything around him tries to pull him back down. And eventually, he changes the trajectory of his life. Not because the world gave him a better hand, but because he learned how to play the hand he was dealt like a master. That's what Stoicism teaches us. You can't always change your circumstances, but you can always change how you rise through them. The core of Stoic strength. Epictetus was born into slavery. He had no freedom, no wealth, and no social status. But he didn't let that define him. Instead of focusing on what he lacked, he trained his mind. He observed human behavior. He mastered philosophy. And eventually, he became one of the most respected Stoic teachers in history. His legacy outlived the masters who once owned him. Why? Because Epictetus understood this. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This idea wasn't just theory, it was his life. He didn't let injustice control his destiny. He controlled his attitude, his thoughts, and his discipline, and that control became the foundation of his power. Circumstances are temporary, character is not. Life is full of unpredictable turns. One day you're stable, the next, you're dealing with illness, loss, or betrayal. But these moments, as defining as they feel, are still only chapters. They are not the whole book. If you're facing adversity right now, ask yourself, am I letting this define who I am? Am I reacting with panic, blame, or despair? Or am I responding with presence, wisdom, and purpose? Because even if the world sees your struggle, what matters most is how you choose to carry it. You are not the storm. You are how you stand in the storm. Reframing reality. When something painful happens, your first instinct may be to resist. Why me? This isn't fair. I didn't deserve this. And maybe you didn't. But resisting what already is only creates suffering. The Stoics didn't fight reality, they worked with it. They accepted what was beyond their control, and then used their energy to focus on what was in their hands. You can't control where you were born, but you can control what you learn. You can't control what someone did to you, but you can choose how you heal. You can't control how life began, but you can decide how it continues. This isn't denial, it's empowerment. You stop asking life to be fair and start asking yourself to be resilient. Calmness in the face of adversity. Stoicism teaches us that calmness is not just for peaceful days, it is especially for difficult ones. When chaos hits, when your plans fall apart, when life feels unfair, your calmness is a rebellion. It says, I will not be ruled by this moment. I will respond with clarity, not collapse. The world expects you to break. When you don't, when you remain calm, composed, and focused, that's when your true strength becomes visible. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't even need to explain yourself. You just need to be unmoved by what seeks to move you. That is power. The power of choosing who you become. Every day, you get to make a decision. Will I be defined by what has happened to me, or by what I decide to do about it? This is the turning point of every hero, every survivor, every quiet warrior who transforms their life. They don't wait for the world to change. They change themselves within the world. They say, I will rise, even if no one believes in me. I will speak truth, even if my voice shakes. I will move forward, even if the road is unclear. And slowly, their response rewrites their story. So what about you? Are you letting your circumstances write your identity? Or are you choosing to define yourself on your terms? Life may have dealt you pain. It may have thrown obstacles you never asked for. It may have tried to convince you that you are small, broken, or incapable. But here's the Stoic truth. Your value is not in what happens to you. It's in who you become despite it. Don't let hardship harden your heart. Don't let poverty steal your potential. Don't let rejection convince you that you're unworthy. Let every difficulty become fuel. Let every scar become a lesson. Let every obstacle become the weight that strengthens your spirit. Because in the end, you are not what happens to you. You are what you choose to do next. Calmness is not a reaction, it's a mastery. What if the most powerful thing you could ever learn wasn't how to win an argument, how to make more money, or how to influence others, but how to control your own mind? Because that, at its core, is what Stoicism teaches. Not how to escape from life, but how to stand tall in the middle of it. Not how to silence the world, but how to create stillness within it. Not how to feel nothing, but how to feel deeply without being consumed. Let's be honest, calmness is not our natural response. Especially in today's world, where everything is fast, loud, urgent, and emotional. We're constantly being pulled by triggers, people who test our patience, circumstances that frustrate us, thoughts that haunt us. But here's what most people never realize. Calmness is not passive. It is not accidental. It is a skill. It's something that must be trained, cultivated, and protected like any other strength. You don't stumble into calmness, you build it with intention. And the beauty is, you don't need to change the world around you to find peace. You only need to change the way you respond to it. You cannot control the world, but you can master your mind. Let's repeat this truth. You cannot control the world. Not people's opinions. Not the traffic. Not the weather. Not the past. not the outcomes. But here's what you can control: your interpretation of what happens, the meaning you assign to events, the space between stimulus and response, your breath, your thoughts, your words, your energy. And if you can master that, if you can pause when others react, listen when others shout, breathe when others panic, you have something most people will chase for a lifetime and never find: freedom from chaos. Not because the chaos stopped, but because you no longer belong to it. The calm mind is a trained mind. It's tempting to think that people who stay calm were simply born that way. But the truth is, most of them weren't. They were forged in fire. They've endured pain, loss, betrayal, injustice, and learned not to let those things own them. They didn't suppress their emotions. They faced them. They didn't numb their pain. They understood it. They didn't avoid the storm. They stood in it, still and focused. You can do that too. Because calmness isn't about pretending things are okay. It's about accepting that things may not be okay, and choosing how to act anyway. It's not about ignoring emotion. It's about governing emotion. It's not about being perfect. It's about being prepared. Prepared to meet life's challenges with clarity. Prepared to protect your peace like it's sacred. Prepared to lead, not with force, but with presence. This is the Stoic path. Stoicism is not a rigid doctrine. It's not about suppressing joy or denying struggle. It's a lens through which to view the world with wisdom, composure, and strength. It reminds you of something essential. You are not powerless. Even in chaos, you have agency. Even in pain, you have choice. When you adopt the Stoic mindset, you stop waiting for peace to come from the outside. You stop saying, "I'll be calm when things settle down." Instead, you say, "I will bring calm into the world, even when things are falling apart." Because that's what real power is. And that's what this journey is about. Take this with you. As you move forward in your day or your life, remember this. Calmness is not a gift reserved for monks, philosophers, or extraordinary people. It is a decision. It is a practice. It is available to you. You don't need the perfect environment. You need focus. You don't need fewer problems. You need deeper presence. You don't need to change everyone around you. You just need to master yourself. Because once you do, no circumstance can own you. No person can provoke you beyond what you allow. No storm can shake the foundation you've built from within. And in a world of noise, that kind of calmness doesn't just stand out, it transforms everything. If this video spoke to something within you, if you found even one sentence that made you pause, reflect, or breathe a little deeper, then consider this your invitation. Keep walking the path of inner mastery. There is more to learn, more to apply, more strength within you waiting to be awakened. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more Stoic wisdom that helps you train your mind and reclaim your calm. Like this video if it helped you see the world, or yourself, a little differently. And share it with someone you care about. Because sometimes, what changes a person's life isn't a grand event. It's a quiet realization, delivered at just the right time. Let's spread this stillness. Let's train our minds. Let's create a world where calmness is no longer rare, but recognized as the greatest strength of all.